Here's my controversial question of the day. Is time segment racing harder than traditional start line to finish line bike racing? I raced the USA Cycling Gran Fondo National Championships back in September. It had like 5 time segments on an 87-mile course and about 9,000 feet of climbing. I was completely worked over by the finish. It's just a different ball game. And maybe time segment Gran Fondos are something that you should put on your racing radar if you want a new challenge or if you haven't considered it before. Welcome back, Time Crunch fans. I'm your host, Coach Adam Pulford, and today we're going to discuss the differences in performance demands between Masters road racing and Fondo or segment racing formats. And the insights may surprise you. Along with me to unpack all of this is Camilo Lopez, Masters racer and the 2025 Maryland Gran Fondo champion in the 45 to 54 age group. Camilo, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure to be here with you today to discuss this.
Yes, yeah, it totally is. Full disclosure, Camilo is one of my best friends here in the DMV area. We ride together all the time. We talk a lot of bull crap back and forth, and we ride long miles and drink a lot of coffee. So I'm very good friends with Camilo, but everybody listening is not. So Camilo, could you tell our listeners a bit more about yourself? Like, what do you do for work? Tell us about your family and how you got into this whole endurance goofy thing.
Of course, I'm originally from Colombia. I've been riding bikes all my life, really. Started with mountain biking back in Colombia. Then I moved to the US for school. I picked up rock climbed for many years, always kept cycling in the side. And in 2013, I started doing triathlons, got really into it. And the piece that I enjoyed the most was the bike. I always favored the bike, looked forward to riding the bike. So I realized I should just bike and moved into cycling in 2018, only cycling. And I've been riding and racing since different types of events, gravel, road races, some crits, and some mountain biking too. So pretty much all around. I have a full-time job. I work in a bank. I have 2 kids. One is 16 and the other one is 10. So I do have time constraints for training and things related to cycling, but I find time and I'm pretty motivated and I get to cycle with my friends like you and I have a blast. So yeah, that's my background.
Yeah. To put some context, some mountain biking, Camilo has done the Cape Epic and has prevailed through that, as well as some other pretty challenging things. But yeah, in that way, I've talked about being time crunched and time rich, and I think a lot of us, we kind of go back and forth between these time constraints in our life where we are, short on time, we're traveling, we just can't ride for a week or something like that. And then other times we move stuff around our schedule. We communicate with like our family and say, we're going long on Friday or Saturday. And when I tell Kristen that I'm riding with Camilo and we say it should be about 4 hours, she goes, okay, I'll see you at sunset. So that's about how it works around here. But Camilo, this is a pleasure. After the Maryland Gran Fondo race, I was completely shelled, like I said, and we were talking about it and we were just like going back and forth about like, man, this was crazy compared to like some of the Masters level races that we've been doing, but crazy in a different way. So let's give a backdrop, like very quick summary of how these two types of races are different. And I should say, and we talked at noon on our group ride about how we need to focus on like traditional Masters racing because there's categories there. It's start line to finish line, but it's different than crits. It's different than junior racing, who you know who you're racing, and of course like professional racing. So we'll keep it kind of focused on like Masters road racing. And there we have mass starts categories, like I said, and sometimes you don't know who's in your category. Like you don't know exactly who you're racing, but you're racing the whole time. And the first one over the the first one over the finish line wins. So, that sounds very obvious, but anything that you want to add to just the quick background of like the Masters road racing context and how we're going to compare it to the segment racing.
The Masters road racing, it's simpler. You know that you need to cross the finish line first or in the best position, and that's your position. That is not true in the segment racing. It's segments, and the segments are separated. They could be separated by few miles or long miles. So you never know where you are until you finish. In a normal road race, you pretty much know where you finished. So a lot more tactics in the segment racing, more things to consider in that regard. So that's how I would say they're different, at least in how you approach them. But a lot of similarities too, which we're gonna dig in later. And usually segment, or at least the Gran Fondos that I've done that are segment racing, they tend to be longer events, 80 miles plus. Well, road racing, Masters road racing, at least in this area, tends to be 50, 60 miles on average. So shorter distances. Unfortunately, the longer road races in this region, at least, have not prevailed after COVID. They never came back. So, or few came back, or most of them came back as gravel events, or the whole landscape changed. So if you like doing longer events, these timed Gran Fondos are a good venue for that.
Yeah. No, that's a good point, and we'll get into some of those like performance determinants here in a second. But I think that is crucial, kind of to it. Is like if you're like me and Camilo, who prevail at longer stuff, less of a sprint, of a fondo or gravel, we're gonna usually perform better in that way, right? And with the fondo or segment racing, it's also mass start, but it starts neutral. Some Masters road race will have a short neutral. Is it really neutral? That's always the question. But again, you have the mass start, you have the age categories. It's also like really confusing, like who's who, what's what, all that kind of thing. So there's some similarities there, but then the racing for the segments just themselves. So to put some context, is you roll out, it's neutral. You blasted hard for 4 or 5 times, whatever the segments are, and you're regrouping along the way. You're stopping at aid stations. You're kind of like laughing, making jokes. You're going to the bathroom. Like it is very, very chill in between the segments, but it is also like, I don't know, DEFCON 1 during the segments. Like it is like I hit some of my peak powers of all time this year, not going to lie. And I'm just like, why are we going so hard right now? Like blew my mind. Like I never go that hard in Masters racing unless I have to. And I tell my athletes this all the time. I'm like, do as little as it takes to win in a road race, right? Because we're conserving, we're drafting, we're being efficient. And if you're there at the right time, maybe it's just a little pop sprint around the corner. I win, right? Sometimes you need to completely gut yourself because you made the break, you went solo. Maybe it's like Camilo at Poolsville a couple of years ago. That's what he did, went solo all the way to the victory, and he went very hard on that one. So the contrasts are very different. And I think like in true like Masters racing, there's more artistry to it. There's more feel to it. There's the drafting. You're reading the people. You're reading your competition. And again, like being efficient is crucial during these Fondo and time segment races. You're not even thinking about the next segment. You are basically just burning the ships. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. In road racing, you have to be paying attention the whole time. You have to be on the whole time, even though the pace, especially in Masters racing in this area, there's a lot of negative racing. It's like kind of like easy, cover a move, easy, and then a sprint. Some go like that. And then sometimes I've come from Masters races here, and I go way harder in a group ride.
Right.
So even though it was a race, there was not a lot of racing. So that is not true in the segment type of racing. When you're in the segment, it's all out. And you're racing. So in that regard, it's different, like in a road race, you never know. Now there's some other road race that are absolutely super hard, the whole pace, but it depends on the group. It depends on who shows up and the dynamics of that particular race. In the segment racing, it's always hard. In the segments, you know you're gonna go hard, and you should go hard. Even if you drop people, you keep going. You don't coast, you don't conserve. You go all out because you want to get the maximum amount of time in that segment. And to be clear in this one is you have, let's say, the race we just did, Adam, with the Gran Fondo Maryland.
Yeah.
It's 5 segments. Each segment is timed individually. And at the end, your time is the cumulative summatory of times from the 5 segments. So you're incentivized into get as much time as you can in between each segment. Even if you dropped everybody, you have an incentive to go all out. In a road race, if you have 50 miles ahead and suddenly you have a 10-second gap, you're not incentivizing to keep yourself at VO2 for 10 seconds because you're gonna get caught and you're gonna get out sprinted. So a lot more strategy in a road race, and we'll discuss this later in some tactics in the Gran Fondo, but it's different the way you would race them for sure.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And just a little bit of background on the Gran Fondo National Series. It's organized by, the name of that company is Gran Fondo National Series, and it's used this time segment competition format since 2012, I think. And the format, it is becoming more popular among fondos and gravel races, even in the U.S., because it's generally more inclusive. Anybody can show up. You can go hard, even if you're not going to go for the win, right? It's less intimidating. I think oftentimes road racing, don't need to get into the culture of that, but it can be a little off-putting for somebody just getting into it, especially if you don't have friends and kind of a culture or a group to roll up to the race with and understand the layers of racing and everything that goes on with it. And I think oftentimes the segment style or format that we're talking about, it's easier to integrate into communities across the nation because you don't have to close down roads or have road enclosures or something like this. It's a little bit more like the gravel scene where, we release the route. Here it is, follow it along, stay safe on the roads, that kind of thing. So again, it's gaining traction here. And Oat Root had done that before in the United States. And I remember this might go back to 2010 or 2012. They had some, it was amazing because you get these epic, huge rides. You go hard in between, you find friends and you ride along the way. So overall, I'm a big proponent of this style of racing or events, but I've never gone this deep before, which finally has got me thinking about all of this, which is why we're here with the podcast. So with that backdrop, Camilo, we're kind of going along here because we're storytelling as well as getting into the juicy details of physiology. Let's talk about the performance demands of each of these things: Masters road racing, and then the Fondo segment style racing. So we've already talked on the Master style road racing being much more tactical throughout the entire race. Drafting and efficiency prevail. Pacing from start to finish, you need to titrate those efforts based on the gamification of what's going on in the race. And there's also limited feeding opportunities. We didn't talk about nutrition just yet, but really it's how much can I bring on my person and in my bottles and effectively drain the tank, with what I can. Sometimes you can get a feed, but not all the time. Right. So that's part of the strategy as well. And then the course dependent, you can have a big FTP and that's helpful, but the sprintability is actually very crucial for most, let's respect around here anyway, that doesn't have huge hill climbs, but that sprintability is crucial if you want to break away or win something. Would you agree?
100%. 100%. In Masters racing, especially in this particular area, which is the Mid-Atlantic region near Washington, D.C., in this particular area, I would say having a good sprint is key to win races. Well, in the Gran Fondo, it's important to have it, but I would say not one time. I've won this race twice, and not because I'm sprinting. I'm not particularly good at sprinting. So the sprinting ability is a lot. It's muted in segment racing, while in Masters racing it's critical, I would
Yeah.
say. So
It's critical, and you know, some people say, "Well, I live in Colorado or California where we have these big hill climbs." Sure, and that's where big FTP again. It's very helpful and might be critical. It's course dependent, but you still need that sprint at the end, right?
mhm,
So
mhm.
then we get into the two other things which I think are crucial and essential: are power for repeatability in masters racing and durability. So can you perform late in the game, whether that's a sprint or a 5 minute effort or something like that? So big FTP, helpful, not crucial. Sprint, crucial. Power for repeatability, crucial. Durability, essential. Now with the Fondo and segments, big FTP, crucial.
No, no, I
No.
would say VO2 max.
Mm-hmm.
I would say depending on the distance of the segments. Obviously, you need to be. We were talking about this today at midday, and it's obviously
Mm-hmm.
you need to be to succeed in either. You have to be a solid rider. You have to have an engine, for sure. In both, the difference is in the segments. You're only gonna go hard for the amount of time that the segments give you. So some segments are short and not necessarily hilly, and some are really hilly. And then definitely your watts per kilo are crucial. In a road race, the way you race, being in the right time at the right moment, covering the right move, and conserving energy might be you can get away and win a race effectively being a weaker rider than
Mm-hmm.
several of the people in the peloton. If you're smart, you can win the race. You don't need to be the strongest. You need to be smart. In segment racing, I would say the strongest wins.
Yep.
That's what I've seen, at least in the fields that I've seen. The people that have won, they're stronger than me. I mean, while not the same in masters racing, I get beat several times over and over by people that in regular group rides I would drop.
Yep.
So different. It's in that sense it's different.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, definitely agree with you. Like big VO2 prevails,
Mm-hmm.
but let's call it how it is. VO2 max is a high aerobic marker. FTP is that high aerobic marker. So
Yeah.
even for you, like when your FTP is its biggest, your VO2 max is also its biggest. You don't fluctuate in body weight all that much. So those two are directly correlated. There is definitely a direct correlation between those two. And the person who is the strongest is kind of that hammer that can just like grind out. And these segments too, um, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and 30 minutes ish, 28 to 30 minutes, something like that. So they're not they're not ultra long, but they are long segments, and they're not super short sprinty stuff, right? So all those durations that I talked about are how they would relate to what we talk about on this podcast in your physiology. Is they are aerobic glycolytic energy systems. It
Mm-hmm.
still mean aerobic. Don't discredit that for being not hard. Aerobic is hard, but it is high aerobic glycolytic energy, right? And so that's where FTP and VO2 max really shine through. And so that's what I want. So if you're training for all these things, I mean, you double down on that, right? And we'll get to how to train for this here in just a second. But like, I think that those, if there's like big things that are difference between the two, just because you're carrying a big FTP and you're rolling into Masters national championships, you ain't gonna win. But if you roll
Correct.
into Gran Fondo national championships, aka group ride national championships, as some people like to talk about it, yeah, you're probably gonna have a good chance at prevailing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I would say I misunderstood your comment, and I thought you meant riding at FTP.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Not the F.
Fair enough.
I didn't mean the FTP. Obviously, FTP is critical for everything. But what I mean, if you're riding at FTP in the segments, you're not gonna win. While in a road race, you might. You might keep your FTP. Like you put the example of Poolsville 2 years ago. I
Mm-hmm.
managed to break, and then I rode my FTP. And
Mm-hmm.
riding at my FTP I was able, because the group didn't organize, not because I was super fast, but because the group didn't organize to catch me, riding on my FTP, I was able to stay away. So in the Gran Fondo, if I ride my FTP, I get dropped. So that's what I meant. Like while in the road race, only in certain specific moments you might have to go to your VO2 when there's attacks, when you need to cover a move, or something that you think it's important to not let go, and obviously at the end. But other than that, you rarely are. Yeah, I would say even above FTP, rarely, but or at FTP. So
Yeah, that's a good distinguisher because, like I said, efficiency in masters road racing and burn the ships in the segment. I can't tell you how hard like that was. Like honestly, like very hard. And I was just like, this is unsustainable, you guys. Like this, I was blown away. Anyway, so real quick before we get into how to train for this, clearly coach needs to do more intervals here, but everybody probably knows that. Let's talk about the tactics of this segment racing, because you understand this and do this better than I do. I just kind of showed up and went hard. Tell us about like the team tactics, where if you got a team and you roll up, how you could do that. And also let's talk about the tactics of the timing mat and how someone could gamify or optimize speed and performance on how the timing system works at these segment races.
Mm-hmm. So in a road race, if you're racing with a team, there's a lot of team tactics. You're racing with your team, and the whole idea is to get one of you of the team to win. You actually race as a team. In the Gran Fondo segments, this is less important precisely because it's segments. So a lot less team tactics that I've seen. Also in the Gran Fondo, or in the time segment format, you get, as you said, it's more inclusive. You get a lot more people, and you can get to the segments with a lot more people of all different age groups, but also of different abilities. In the road race, you're already filtered at least by age, and as the road race goes by, people get dropped, and the herd starts thinning. In the segments, you can go super hard in one segment, finish with the top group, but then things slow down in between the next segment, and everybody that's behind catches again. So usually you hit every segment with bigger groups, so that also changes the dynamic of the segment. So I would say when you go into a road race, there's strategy. You usually discuss the strategy with your team, in what places make sense to attack depending on the profile of the course. Who's your strongest rider in that day, and you're gonna protect him or her, and then you race that way. In the segment, there's not really a lot of strategies. Just go as hard as you can in the segment and get as much time as you can. What the segment races do have is tactics. There's a lot of like little things that are unrelated to your performance and to your fitness that can make you win very valuable seconds, and you can actually win the overall thanks to those tactics. So, for example, when you're coming behind the group or with the group, whoever crosses first in the group and whoever crosses last in the group, you're already X amount of seconds behind that person in the segment. So if you manage to come last in the group, or even give them like a 5-second lead and then accelerate and catch them, effectively you made up that time. So you, from the get-go, even though you finish at the exact same, you cross the finish line of the segment with the person that is first, if you entered last, you already made 5 or 10 seconds potentially on that segment. If you multiply that by 5 segments, you might have gotten between 30 to 50 seconds if you're smart in how you do it. And you see it in every race that people don't want to come in first. Everybody's lagging. In fact, I heard in the recent national championship, a person that was coming into the second segment completely braked, almost caused a crash, because he didn't want it to come first into the segment. He wanted other people to come first into the segment, precisely because of those seconds. So there's those tactics. I might not agree with them, but they're part of the race, and you need to keep them into consideration, especially if you're not, if you want to win and your competition is close to you, you have to be smart about that.
Yeah, just to build off that, yes, that happened like right in front of me and almost caused a pile up. And I'm like, what the heck, people? And then from there, the next, I think 2 or 3 segments, I made my way like to the front because I'm like, I don't want to get crashed out by these jokers. So I did the exact
Exactly.
opposite of what you should have done. Not knowing like
No.
like how something works, right? I preached about that on the podcast before, is like, if you want to do something well, learn how it works. I got a hard lesson in how segment racing worked by doing it wrong. So should have consulted with Coach Camilo before the race.
It's I mean, you see it, but so that's why I was talking about like tactics and also, for example, if you do the segment, in between segments, you ride chill. If you see a group that's going too hard, if it's a really good group, in between segments, I'm saying, if it's a really good group, then it's worth you staying with them and maybe burning a little bit more energy to keep up with that group.
Yeah.
But if it's not, which you see it all the time, people that just keep going, let it go and find the 4 or 5 people that are good, and then you work with them in the segments, because in the segment, it doesn't matter if you finish the whole Gran Fondo first. That doesn't mean
right
where you're going to place. I know from, we were talking about this today, Adam, in previous years, they on this particular event, some teams would let everybody go, start last, and they would do the segments by themselves with the team, the 8 or 10 people, friends or similar abilities, and they would crash because they don't have to deal with anybody else. They have a good group working together, which at the end of the day is what's important in these segments. And, they come last, and then suddenly they won everything. So in a road race, you don't see that. In a road race, if you're not in the front, that's it. You're done. So you can play those tactics. You can play games depending on where you are. And if you have friends and you know them, that goes a long way in segment racing.
Yeah. And if you make good friends out there too, like not knowing anybody before, you make good friends, you go fast. It's just really different, than that kind of more cliquey road racing style that is, just in the road scene. So
exactly.
Yep.
And just to finish, to give an example, last year, in the first segment, I managed to break away from the group, and I knew I ended the first segment around 15 seconds ahead of the second or of the group that was behind. From there on, I knew I didn't need to do 1 second of work all day. All I needed to do was to cover whatever wheel was in front of me. That's it. So it completely changed the way I needed to race from there on, because I was just protecting my spot, protecting my delta that I made on my first segment. While on a road race, forget it about that. You only know until the end. You have to be on your toes the whole way. So that's different tactics and on the segment racing.
Yeah, wildly different tactics. Man, you're far more aware and smart than I am. I basically just went until I saw red and headed to the snack station. So
it's more fun that way, for sure. It's more fun. I would prefer if road racing, Masters road racing, was that way, like balls out. If we're gonna pay for a race, I want to race. That's how I see it. I don't want to go and sit on wheels and sprint. I'm paying and we're not professionals. We want to get the hardest possible event possible. So and that I do appreciate of segment racing, that you do get absolutely shelled. By the end of the race, you're done. So that's.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. If you are somebody who basically values the suffering per dollar spent, something like this, it checks all the boxes for sure.
Yes,
and
for sure.
I think if I could pick and choose what I would want in a race, it is the flowy, like I've used this word gamification, but it's the people working together in flow that know how to ride their bikes, where maybe there's a preem or there's some sort of like hilltop finish, and then there's also the sprint finish, and you can gut yourself but also like try to win the race all at the same time. That to me, that's it for me.
Yeah.
I think the segment blasting yourself every I don't know, 10 miles or something like that, I don't know, man, I don't know if I'll do it again, but it's hard.
It's races within a it is races within an event.
Yeah.
So what you said at the beginning, I think it's the key, and it's very inclusive. You can do this segment and then regroup with your friends, with everybody that it's maybe not even interested in doing the event, but they're just there to complete the distance and the elevation, because 88 miles, which was this year with around 9K of elevation, that's a proper ride. That's a beautiful ride for
just
everybody.
just to
So,
get to the finish line.
and it's hilly. So some
Yeah.
people do this just to do the event, and that's fantastic. But with the added bonus that you could like do it with your friends that are actually racing the segments. So you get the best of both worlds. But it is this particular event, the one we did in Maryland, it was 5 races within an event. So
Yeah.
you can choose if you race it or not. And if, let's say, you start and you're not feeling well, then you just keep doing the ride, and you didn't lose your money or feel bad about it or nothing. It's very
Yeah.
inclusive in that regard, and I do, as we're talking about this, I do appreciate that aspect of the format, and
Yeah.
and how it brings more people. It's less intimidating. There's no categories. There's no, you don't need to be a member of USA Cycling or
Right.
things like that. It's more um,
That's a good way to put it.
inclusive.
I think that the inclusive bit of it, plus like, man, I'm not feeling it today, sort of thing, in the day's not wasted, versus, oh, I got lapped and I guess I'm out, that. So
Mhm.
that's a really interesting way to look at it. I think two things that stood out to me when you're talking to is like, I met a lot of people, and I was riding with somebody where they're like, yeah, I live in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and it's beautiful down there, but this is like a different beautiful, right? And I think when, number one, you have these epic rides in beautiful locations, right? And it's new, it can be different, and you get to experience that, just first and foremost. But second is, if you're racing, sometimes, like I've done La Ruta 4 or 5 times, and there was one time I went down just to be the director of the team that we brought down. I learned more, saw more, realized more in the year that I went as a director versus the racer. Because the race, I mean, you just are, trying to get through point A to point B through the jungle, don't die, don't get, where there's a snake, all that kind of crap, right? So the segments allow you to like chill, talk to people, and experience like how beautiful stuff is. And we ride up in Frederick often, and I was like, yeah, I was noticing stuff too that I hadn't before. So I think in that
Mhm.
way, there's all these other kind of opportunities that go on with a different style of racing like that. So
for for sure, you talk to the people in between the segments, because you still have to do 50 miles in between, or with riding. So you talk to people from all around come, while the masters races, at least in this area, you tend to pretty much race with the same people all the time, which is
hmm
great too, because
hmm
then you actually know the wheels,
exactly,
and
yep, that's
for
part of the
safety.
strategy. Yeah,
Correct. And
yep,
and for strategy, but as we said, for inclusiveness and overall openness, the segment racing is it's a great format in that regard. And as you were pointing out, kind of like the gravel events that have gotten super popular and grown in popularity, precisely because they bring more of that community aspect into the riding, and it's more friendly to people that are just starting or want to dab into this or not. Well, the racing, can be a little bit intimidating, from the get-go.
yep, yep, that's it. So I think now, as we're just kind of starting to push toward the end of this, is like how to train for these two things, right? And let's start first with like masters road racing. And uh, the boring answer, the straight up boring answer, is how to train for it. Well, a general progressive overload periodization plan is good. Start with a base, go build preparation, then you get into the specific training stuff. And there's intervals galore that we could talk about. We'll mention a couple right now, but go back to what I said about like the masters road racing. It's an art, it's a craft. And so when people say, well, what do I need to do to, prepare for Poolsville or this road race or whatever, you need to race your bike, because racing is the best training for racing, in my opinion. Okay.
100%.
Because of the artistry, because of the craft. And group rides hit, don't get me wrong, group rides are specific and they do well, but it's kind of like this segment racing where there's on times and off times. You can kind of mentally space out a little bit, or you stop at the gas station and your buddies are there for 10 minutes doing whatever. And so like group rides definitely hit, but like racing, like if you want to become a good racer, you race. And that should be in the and that builds over time. And I'm not just saying like sign up for 80 road races in a year if you're a master and you'll be good. I do not advise that. But in that way, it's a general progressive overload sort of approach. And the reason I say that too is Camilo does a very good job of this, but we maximize the aerobic capacity before we turn on the anaerobic intensity. Okay. And for Camilo, he's one of these athletes that I train kind of differently, where I long leash on him because I know he's got good habits where it's high mileage, keep this up. And I've got kind of a set kind of boundary of where I'm keeping the CTL to make sure that he stays fit. And when he decides to do something, we're 8 weeks out from getting specific and pointy and fast. That's the general strategy with Camilo. So anything that you want to add to that in the way of how we prep you for road racing, or what works best for you, or something like that?
I think if the road racing requires more group tactics and knowing how to ride in a pack very well, and being very safe, or it's tighter, it's faster, and you're racing the whole time. And you're racing in downhills, you're racing in uphills, you're racing in flat. While on the segments, they tend to be uphill, which slows not all of them, but most of them are uphill, and that slows down the pace a lot, making it a lot safer. So if let's say you're the type of person that you don't like group rides, you don't like group rides or races because you think, or regular races because you think they can be dangerous, which they can be. And you're like, look, I'm 45, I have kids, I want to be, I want to come home every day and be good, but still do events. Segment racing is fantastic because you can do it with minimal skill of group tactics. You still need to know how to draft and how to be safe and everything, but you don't need to be fantastic at it. You see it. Actually, you see it in the segment racing, and I know some people that do very well and always ride by themselves. So you can get by and do fantastic in these segment races without doing any other racing or riding in groups. While the other way around, you won't. You can be, unless you're like amazing, and because at the end of the day, it's engine. If you're like insane, well, yeah, you're gonna come and drop everybody. But if you're, like a normal masters, like you do need to race, and you do need to get that that specifics, and that was something. For example, Adam, I came from triathlon, and I could go long, and I could go at tempo for a really long time. But in the first group race I would join, I would get dropped because races are VO2 set up, the breakaway, and then you maintain. So it's different in that regard too. So definitely for masters racing, and getting really good in group tactics, or in group riding and tactics if you have a team. While all of that is not that important, it's important. It's still relevant, but not as relevant.
Yep.
I think we were talking about this today. I think if you road race a lot and you want to come into segment racing with some specific training and tweaks and tactics and just tricks, you can actually do very well. But the other way around, no. So it's kind of like segment racing is a sub of road racing. While if we went to do gravel racing, completely different.
Yep. Yeah.
Completely different. Now that's complete. That's a whole different category on everything. Like if you come from a mountain biking background,
Right.
you're gonna, if you have good cornering, is the course is technical, not technical. It's a whole different thing. But in this particular one, if you're a good road racer, you can be a fantastic segment racer. But if you're a fantastic segment racer, you might not be a fantastic road racer.
Yeah,
So,
and it's no dig to segment racing or people who prevail at segment racing, but it's just like I said, the artistry, the craftsmanship of road racing. You can be a ninja on the bike and win and do well, but that means you probably have a lot of hay in the barn of racing and training also, like in your background. You just haven't trained a bunch recently, right? And you can only be that ninja on things where not huge hill climbs and all this kind of stuff. But at some point, like, to be good at road racing, it's that craftsmanship. But then, like what Camilo was saying, is he had a big aerobic engine when him and I first met. So the two places where we work on the specificity of training, or kind of in the final stages, are the power for repeatability and durability. So power for repeatability, what do I mean by that? It's kind of the on off, repeat, go hard, maybe not max, but hard, short, not full recovery, then go again. So an example workout might be 15 by 1 minute on and 1 minute off. That power intervals. That's a great road racing, crit racing, power for repeatability, durability, or power for repeatability workout. Some people might do speed intervals that are like 30-30s. I think that if you're going for like race winning moves, and if you're 8 weeks out, I'd go more like a minute on, minute off, minute on, minute off. That's going to get you pretty durable, in my opinion.
mm-hmm.
Threshold with surges. These are also good. I just had an athlete do a big one of this. So 1 by 45 minute go. And it was like 3.5 minutes, like sub threshold or threshold. So like 91 to 101% of FTP, and then a hard surge that's maybe like 130 to 150% of FTP. So like a VO2 power, or like a zone 5. And we're just going low zone 4, mid zone 5, low zone 4, mid zone 5, back and forth like that with no recovery. Because again, we're working on, can I repeat this power, and can I hold up over time?
Mm-hmm. And for example, you mentioned earlier today that your best numbers, some even from all time, not even from this year, from all time, you put them in this past event. And you race a lot, and you've raced mountain biking, gravel, you just did tracker, which, I mean, it's not like you've been slacking. So you've been doing this, and in the group racing here, you're always, one of the first one, if not the first. So why did you put the best numbers in a segment race, right?
Great question.
It versus, because you've been racing. So I think there's no race that I've done in this area, or ever, that I have to go for 25 minutes all out as hard as I can. Usually it's, I go for 5 minutes until the break gets set, and then you start working. So then the pace is harder, right? There's no lag in between. So you need to be able to do that. And as you said, repeatability. Repeat, but then keep a high here. In here is insanity followed by 50 watts, or as easy as you can make it. And you have
7.5 watts or 7.1 watts per kilo, and then 1.7 watts per kilo. It's
the chillest you can go in between segments. That's your strategy. So, but then you put all these insane numbers for you before. And for example, you've mentioned this before. It's in this event every year that I see your best numbers, and it's good to have them because you can compare them with previous efforts. So because it's the same route, the same segment. So it's very good also as marker for athletes, for everybody doing these segment events. It's a fantastic marker because the segments are the same, and the efforts will be, you can gauge your fitness year by year in those segments. Not true in a race. You can finish a race first today, 100 tomorrow, and would have done way more effort placing 100. It depends on the group that came that day. So
that's a good point.
So I think that's an interesting thing of segment racing. It gives you a good continued marker of improvement, or it's
Yeah.
cleaner that way. It's less there's less disturbance, I guess, in the data.
Mm-hmm.
It's. I mean, there's some you're still drafting, and every time you have somebody stronger than you in front of you that motivates you, so that helps. But in general, I would say I've done this event like, I don't know, 6 times, and I would say, like the difference between timing in one segment and another, it's 5 seconds. It's the
Mm-hmm.
variability is not big. So
Yeah. Yeah. Those are all really good points. And I think too I mean, I just get more motivated for group rides. Like I've done a
okay,
lot of training. I've done all the intervals I've ever wanted to do in my life and then some. And I'm just at a point right now where I'm not motivated for that. But put me next to somebody and go uphill, hell yeah, let's go, right? That kind of thing. So I think it is, yeah, I had a big year that was front loaded by Trekka, so I got a lot of volume, got a lot of hay in the barn. It was hot as Hades for 2 months, so I've got extra plasma volume as it just cooled down and the fall foliage is here. Same thing with you. So I think like for a lot of us that have been riding and doing events and stuff, like September hits really well around here for various reasons, and producing that power like was really good. I did not know that until like I uploaded stuff, but I was just, but then you talk about some of these other tactics too that we didn't talk about too much, and I don't know if we have time for it, but like stupid Adam, who's like, man, I'm gonna carb up and bottles, 750 and all the, because I didn't look at where the aid stations were. I just rolled down from the house. Meanwhile, Camilo is like running like cell phone
half
in
a
pocket
bottle.
with one, yeah, half a bottle just to get up Hamburg because he knows there's a freaking aid station on the backside. Then you
Exactly.
fill up and then you go. So I had
Exactly.
an extra 3 pounds probably at
Mhm.
least 3.5 pounds. So if you want to improve speed right there, start thinking about what you actually have to carry. Look at the course map, look at where the aid stations are, and in segment racing you can stop. There's no penalty for that. And that will
Exactly.
strategically improve your speed. So if you learn anything from this podcast, learn from Mr. Dummy over here. Just think ahead a little bit and you will go faster.
Yeah, more tactics, and just to close it, which we talked
Yep.
about at lunch, and it's the nutrition. In
Yep.
a road race, you have to bring all of your nutrition. You might have a places where you might be able to get a bottle from from a feed station, but the feed stations, you have to be careful. You miss bottles. Sometimes the whole group comes in and it's hard to get
Yep.
in. I
Yep.
I've definitely missed feed stations. So you need to be self-sufficient. You need to know that I might not get another bottle. I need to be careful and bring obviously the carbs or whatever, your gels or any food
Yep.
that you're consuming. In this segment racing, I didn't bring anything. I stopped in every aid station. I would drink a Coke and a peanut butter and jelly, keep going.
Yep.
So it's way
It's the best
easier
ride fuel in my
to
opinion.
control.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you can control it way more, and you can eat whatever you want, and stop and relax or stretch or go to the bathroom. A lot of things that in a regular road race will impact you. In here, you don't have. So
Yeah.
so that's
But
another
but that's
difference.
exactly my mentality. Like the night before, I was like, okay, like 87 miles,
That's
9,000 feet. This will take me 5 hours. I need like 6 gels, 2 bottles, and
no battles. Yeah.
and it was like
So
halfway up Hamburg. I was like, that is when it hit me. I was like, God, I'm
in
going so fucking hard right now. And I'm like, oh, I have 2 bottles right now. God damn
in
it.
those 3 pounds, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes a difference.
Yeah. It was
So
really bad.
especially on, yeah. So that's another, I would say, important difference between one and the other.
Yeah. 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 We are kind of bouncing around. That my last note on it, like the Masters racing durability. That's pretty hot topic right now. I mean, search for Time Crunch Cyclist durability. I've done 3 or 4 podcasts on this, so you can learn all you want on that. But really, what we're talking about is can you perform late in the game? This is important for Masters racing as well as segment racing, but I would say most important for that Masters, just because you spend a lot of energy, even though you're trying to conserve, and then you have to perform late in the game for that finishing sprint, the hill climb, whatever. So how you train for it, you do work, right? You do work and then go hard. So for Masters level racing, Usually 1500 kilojoules is usually what I see at least playing out here, because we're racing 50, 60, maybe 70 miles. So 1500 kilojoules of aerobic work. I think for some other people, I also use 2000 kilojoules, so somewhere in there. Best way to identify is just go back and look at some race data and see before that final sprint how many kilojoules you're doing. Do that in an aerobic ride and then go 5-minute full tilt, or do your sprint and work on producing power on tired legs within a workout.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you improve
Mm-hmm.
durability.
Mm-hmm.
So segment training, Camilo, I would say, back to the old, like the boring answer, progressive overload periodization still prevails, because again, we want to have a big aerobic engine. We want to maximize aerobic capacity. If you intensify before that, which sometimes you may not have the timing to do, like sometimes you got to just go hard coming in because you want the intensity and specificity of it. But like as much as you can, as big of a runway as you can, try to maximize aerobic capacity first, then your intensive training will go a lot better. But as we were talking about, like this kind of the specifics of segment racing is like interval training. It's just on and off, right?
Exactly. If you had to, if you lived in an area where you cannot ride outside and you only have a trainer, you can do, specific intervals or training in your turbo and do fantastic on the day of the event. While in road racing it's more erratic. So
and to that point, like I met a lot of cool new people, and I also listened to a lot of people, and all the people that were kicking my ass, they were talking about how much training they were doing indoors, and like, yeah, I did a 4-hour ride with like 5 intervals, and one of them was like at the very end. I'm like, that's a pretty good workout for this. I would never do that, but that's a great workout. I mean, honestly, because it is very specific, right?
You were with a very fast group. You were with the point, with the top people, not only in the area, but I would say in the nation in that. So I mean, it's like
well, I almost turned around and went home. So
yeah, no, but I mean, you were with some very, very legitimate riders that day. So.
Well, Henry Neff also rode away from us. Who, to that point, Henry Neff is one of the top juniors in the nation, going on to U23s here soon. But like that dude, he highest aerobic capacity of anybody there, and he won the ball game. So again, kind of coming back to that high aerobic capacity, get your FTP nice and big, hit VO2 intervals going in. So I mean, we talked about these segments. 15. It's not true. The longest one was right around 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. That's a little different, because that one I would say also requires like pack riding skills. Like the more you can ride and also incentivize people to work with you, that's crucial. That's good. I missed the boat on the fast group there because I was hanging out in the aid stations. And by the way, eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I realized people were gone. So that group, the group that I was hanging out with the whole time, they went 28 minutes. I snuck on this other group and I was 32, and I was like, yeah, dang. And that's how I lost the game. Anyway. And yeah, go ahead.
And just to add on that, for sure, if you're going to do segment riding, you need to pay attention which one's the good group, because a lot of the segments are draft dependent, and the difference between going with one group and the other, you might do the exact same effort, but in the other group go 3 minutes faster because they're of the draft. So you need to be paying attention at all times. You can in between. You cannot stay in the aid station 2 hours and then, because then you're gonna lose the fast group. So that's another tactical thing. Like find a good group, stick with it all day.
Yeah, that's it for sure. Mm-hmm. And so if people are interested in this too, and it's like, okay, so what is the best training? I mean, honestly, group rides are some of the best, because you have these intermittent, hard periods. You're riding with people, and if I can like really advocate for anything, is riding with people is super healthy for so many reasons. Because if you're gonna do events, you don't want to be the person, you don't want to be the swervy dude or the swervy girl that runs into people and causes problems, right? You also don't want to have so much anxiety about mass starts and people all over the place and all this kind of stuff. You want to know how to handle your machine. You want to have confidence in that. And yeah, go hard up the hill, but like the more you ride with people, the more confidence and skills you'll have. So group rides, full stop. But on these riding with a friend, Camilo is great because he makes beautiful routes and they always incorporate hills throughout. So find a friend like Camilo and have these long rides that are 4 to 5 hours that have hills. And all you do is you ride hard on the hills, endurance in the flats. You stop every once in a while to get some cokes. And that's a great training program. How hard? I would go threshold, but every once in a while, go full tilt. Because again, like these segments are peak powers of my all time. The second best peak powers of all time in 3 different categories. I can't even remember right now, but it's like they were very hard. So you got to prepare for that. And especially from the durability side of things is a lot of people are cramping up because again, it's full tilt and the final one was like 30 minutes long, a lot of people cramping. And then there's a little sprint at the top of that. So replicate that for the specificity in your training. But I think, yeah, you can really game the system by doing this stuff indoors for sure. Indoor racing, totally. Indoor courses where you just like pin it on the hills. That'll definitely get the job done.
And you can train on the course and you know the segments and that helps. I mean, that's true for a road race too. You know, that you can say, oh, you can go on the course. But if it's a flat race, yeah, you go on the course, but you know, like it's muted. What's going to make the difference is the group. While in these segments, the group will make a difference. But if you have the chance to train in the course, know where the areas that are going to get steeper or the curves or things, it helps a lot too and you can train on the course, which is fantastic. And this particular course is quite hilly. So that helps too.
That's it. Yeah, that is absolutely it. And I don't, because this is a fairly specific podcast about the differences between these two, like racing, situations. I had a ton of fun talking to Camilo about this. And like I said, he's done this race so many times. I don't mean this to be like a billboard for this race in particular, but I will mention that we ride in this area a lot. Frederick, Maryland is close to my heart because it just has good, quiet roads, gravel roads, mountain bike trails. It's a cool, funky town. Put it on your radar to go at least visit. But if you want to try some of this time segment racing, like this race is established and it's not going anywhere. So you do need to qualify for the national championship version of it. So if you want to qualify for the 2026 version, go over to GranFondoNationalSeries.com. Or you go to usacycling.org and you can click on the national series page there, and you can find a bunch of information about how to qualify, how to get in, how this whole thing works. But then they also have the non-championship race, which is what Camilo has done several times. If you're not a U.S. Citizen, or if you didn't qualify, you can still come and race the same segments on the same course, and the numbers, the segments get posted, and so you can also kind of compare race to race. It's super fun. There's a good chill vibe afterwards, food, beer, a good hangout in downtown Frederick, Maryland. So kind of a shameless plug for what I consider to be a hometown sort of race. So I definitely want to mention that. Camilo, any shameless plugs you want to throw out there into the world?
No, it's a fantastic race. It's a local race, and for anybody that is local that has been thinking about like this type of format, it's worth it. It's fun. It's gonna be hard. It's less intimidating. Definitely try it. And if the distance challenges you, or if you're not comfortable with 88 miles, they have other distances, and they keep the segments so you can do shorter distances also. I think it's a fantastic event. That's why I keep doing it, and I think we should support our local events and races too. If we want them to keep continuing, we complain that there's no more races, but then we don't sign in the races that there are. Yeah, it's a fantastic event.
It's a very good point. I think that anybody listening to, like, also go to your like local racing venue, and you can go to the board there and say, we want this type of racing if you don't have segment style, or do something local. I think that's first and foremost. I did mention, and just to kind of broaden this, because again, not sponsored by the Gran Fondo National Series, but like I've done the Oat Route events that were in the United States for a while. They no longer are, but that was my first like sampling of the segment style racing. I had a blast. I rode with friends. Like I said, epic sort of like views in Colorado, and I was like, God damn, this is fun. You have done some in Europe before, Camilo. So if people are like, well, there's no fondos in my local area, and the timing doesn't work out for Frederick, and if they want an international trip, I mean, are there any races off the top of your head that are segment style, like fondo-ish, that are on your mind that you've experienced before over in Europe?
I think that's an important differentiation, and it's there's a lot of companies that are called Gran Fondo something, and Gran Fondo is a style of racing which comes from Europe, and it's basically a road race, a long, hilly road race, point to point, not segments, long, hard, and there's so many of those in Europe. Fantastic races all around. Now, the segment piece, I'm not gonna say it's new because I don't know, but that's the first time I saw it was here in the United States, and I think it for safety and also for very many reasons, but also safety. You don't want people racing down those hills in Frederick, all out. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
On top of that, you have to close everything, and now it's a whole different logistical production. So the segments controls that and keeps the race manageable, or the racing piece of the event manageable. There's Gran Fondos all around. There's the UCI Gran Fondos, but those are point to point. So don't let the Gran Fondo name make you think that it's a segment. No, you need to go in. You need to go in and look exactly what it is. The Gran Fondo, it's kind of like a blanket name at this point. For example, there's another company, Gran Fondo New York, and those are point to point. As far as I know, they're all point to point. I don't think they have segments. So it really depends. My last shameless plug is there is another fantastic event in Frederick coming up October 25, the Gran Fondo. It's everything the Gran Fondo is, but without any of the racing. It's just full fun, but really hilly. I super recommend it. Gran Fondo October 25, and this is with a company that you know well, Adam. They do a fantastic. They have a fantastic mission. Big fans of them. So that's my shameless plug. The Gran Fondo.
This is why I love you. I am glad you worked this in. Yes, my neighbor Alex and her husband Chris actually listen to this podcast. We've been neighbors for like years up there in Frederick, and it was like just a couple of months ago, Chris texted me. He's like, "Dude, I just found your podcast. This is awesome." And I'm like, "Really?" And that's how like terrible I think I am at self-promotion. Either way, they run a Dirty Kitten Gravel series. They run a bunch of races and events. She is, I think, still the manager at Bike Dr. Frederick. Lovely people. They do so much in the cycling community and the cycling world. So if you're in the DMV and you want something just funky, different, and a challenge, Gran Fondo, it is coming up here in
October 25.
October 25. Yeah. And it's hard, man. But like, yeah, it's self-paced, really well-stocked aid stations, and you got anything there. You have pavement, you got like champagne gravel, you have like the rockiest gravel I've ever seen in my life. You have single track. They have grilled cheese, everything. Grilled cheese, sandwiches, cameras, pictures, and they give you the pictures afterwards. It really is a fantastic event. I recommend it highly. I do too. Yes. So we'll link to our notes for the Gran Fondo. It is a little bit of everything, but it is like 10,000 feet of climbing, 100 miles. And Camilo, if you stop for 45 minutes for a grilled cheese sandwich when it's 45 degrees out, I will not ride with you this year. But it is still one of the best events I think I've ever done with you. So yeah. Yeah.
Good.
So, with all that being said, I really hope for all the listeners who are still listening, this is definitely a different duration of podcast, but it's that storytelling, and it sprinkled in some of the training and some of the like eye opening things that I learned by like shredding myself completely on some of these events. I think that you're never too old, you're never too experienced to just learn more and think about things in different ways. And I think that this segment style racing that I'll be honest with you, like I poo-pooed it, like Gran Fondo segment style. That's not for me, but man, it was fun and it was different, you know. And I think too, it's like I still love road racing more. I'll always do that more, but like this was fun, and then as me and Camilo were talking more, I was like, man, we could talk about this like because we were talking about it forever, just like the comparisons, and then I asked you because we had this Viet Velo, which was kind of more like a road racy thing. I was like, which one was harder? The Gran Fondo Championships or the Via Velo, which was just like you were on the gas the whole time, like no stops on, like it was very different, but it hurt in a different way too,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So,
Mm-hmm.
anyway, Camilo, I've taken up way too much of your time. Thank you for coming on the podcast and talking for 1,000 minutes about nerdy stuff. I really appreciate it.
No, of course, I had a blast. Thank you very much for inviting me.
All right. See you tomorrow at noon.
Yes.